What's up, YouTube? Bay Area Baller back again. I'm joined by my boy Los. You can catch him over at NorCal Sports Network, but I got him here with me today. Los, how you doing?
Good, brother. Good to be back on your show and collaborate with Great E Price.
I appreciate it, no doubt. Now, we watched the Niners absolutely demolish the Jaguars. Is that how you thought the game would go? Like I was predicting something like 30-20. Like I thought the Niners would kind of have a handle of that game. I have a I think the Jags are just kind of pretenders. Like I'm not that big on Doug Peterson. Like how many snaps did Lawrence take in that game like under center? Not many. Like it's a shotgun offense and I'm not impressed with Doug Peterson and just what they've been doing the last couple of years. Like they're not a bad team, but like I said, I think they're pretenders. So did that game kind of go as you envisioned, or how are you thinking that was going to
Yeah,
go?
I mean, kind of, sort of. I mean, Vegas has been doing lines for a long time and been getting it right for a long time. So when you watch the lead up to the game and you watch some of the shows nationally and locally, and they're talking about, wow, why are the Niners favorite? Like Jacksonville's won 5 straight, Niners lost 3 straight. It's like, just look at the rosters. Like, Jacksonville's up and coming, but the Niners are established. They're the desperate team. They need to win. And, the Niners were coming off, they were both coming off of buys, but you just felt like the Niners had more sense of urgency. And
And
as
yeah,
we
well, the
all know,
Niners had a bad taste in their mouth, Los.
yeah,
That bye week off, coming off a 3-game losing streak. They were simmering that whole week, and they
right.
came out on fire.
Yeah, the sense of urgency was there. And as we all know, when the Niners come out early and land that first punch and start wailing on people, that's when they're at their best. So I was a little surprised at the margin of victory. I was thinking something more like 27-17, but hey, take it. Take wins as we can get them.
All day, all day. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the coaching and what you've thought about some of these coaches, and we can start off with Kyle. And you alluded to something there. I've been saying, man, Kyle, when he's got the lead, he tends to be in his bag, right? The yards are coming often, but when things start getting tough, you know, sometimes it almost seems like Kyle kind of tenses up. It's almost like this team, as dominant as they are, and I believe wholeheartedly these are Super Bowl contenders. This is a Super Bowl contending team. But Kyle's a bit of a front runner. And I was trying to think like, why is that? Why, when they jump out to an early lead, most of the time it feels like they get a nice handle on that game and they're going to close it out with a W. But when they start falling behind, or if
Yeah,
a negative play, a couple negatives happen,
adversity.
and they get down, just the offense tends to struggle. Even the defense starts giving up chunk plays. But part of it has me thinking about Kyle Shanahan's drop back passing game,
Right.
because when they're down, right now you're in obvious passing situations. And I'm as great as Kyle Shanahan is, I don't think that's his area of strength, is when it's obvious passing downs. It's 3rd and 8, and that's where I feel like the offense takes a dip. It starts to slip when they're running the ball successfully and they can play action and use that, and the defense has to honor it. Then I feel like that's when they find more success. But what do you think about that when they get about the drop back passing game, when they fall behind, or why does it feel like this is like a front running team?
I think Kyle's offense is predicated on like an orchestra. It has to be like perfectly synced, and the threat of a running game, the threat of play action to hold the linebackers just for an extra second gives his guys the ability to get open. The one thing about the Niners, the way they put their team together on offense is, their guys are tough guys. Their guys are run through you. Their guys are, run over you. As far as the wide receivers go, CMC's a quick guy. He's twitchy. He's got moves. He's got shake and bake. But Ayuk is okay at that. Tebow, not really. Jennings, definitely not. So I think when you have to drop back and you know, and the defense knows it's a pass, and it's you notice E on third and 14, third and he's not dropping back like Mahomes or Josh Allen and winging it. He's always running a safe draw because like he thinks third and 15 is just it's too much to pick up.
Or a quick little bubble to Debo,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
hoping Debo can bust something because we know he
right.
has occasionally, but rely. He's not going to convert every 3rd and 14 on a bubble for you.
Well, I mentioned on our show that this touchdown to Kittle was the first touchdown I have seen that was a post route in under Shanahan since he's been here for 6+ years down the sidelines. There's been 2 touchdowns that were deep down the middle that I can think of. Maybe you can think of another one. Emmanuel Sanders against New Orleans. Jimmy just threw it up. He caught it and went in. And then Kittle caught a deep post down the middle against the Rams. But along the sidelines, that's not a play the Niners run. It's not a big play offense. I mean, he drafted Danny Gray, and we'll get to him in a minute. Missed, one of the few guys they have on the outside that has speed, that has a big game, ability, but he's not used. So to answer your question, I think it's really tough for them when they do get behind and they have to throw and they need chunk plays. They don't need 5, 6, 8 yards. They need big chunk plays because they're running out of time. I think that's the weakness of the Niners offense. And I think that's why Shanahan has the record that he does when he gets behind in third and fourth quarters.
I agree with you. And I want to talk about the running game as it pairs to Kyle Shanahan because where are you putting? Because there's been some struggles running the rock, right? Especially during the 3-game losing streak. And what did you see on film? Do you think that's more of an offensive line struggle? Is McCaffrey missing holes, or what would you chalk up kind of the struggles of the run game, kind of especially during that 3-game losing streak?
Little combination of Trent Williams, their best run, guy, being out, and the
Yeah.
right side of the offensive line not exactly being very dominant at that point. McCaffrey, I think he's been banged up more than people think, and that kind of leads me to one of my biggest pet peeves against Shanahan is I think he's a really smart, brilliant coach. I think his number one weakness is his stubbornness. And I've alluded to it many times on my channel. They got a guy named Mason that is 230 pounds. And I just don't understand. Okay, hear me out very clearly on this, everybody. I am not saying Jordan Mason is better than CMC at all, but it is a long year. If you have 20 carries, 20 touches for CMC over a long season, is he going to be 100% healthy going into the playoffs? Where you use Mason and his 230 pounds, 3rd and 1, 4th and inches. Why is CMC running up the middle and having to take hits from 320-pound linemen? When you have I keep hearing the thing about Mason is, he fumbled in training camp. He hasn't fumbled in a game. As a matter of fact, CMC's fumbled in games. He doesn't have very good pass protection. I don't need him to have pass protection on 3rd and 1 and 4th and inches. So why is Mitchell elevated over Mason when Mason is at 5.7 yards a carry and looks great every time he gets a chance? I don't know why he's in the doghouse. But the running game, I think, with him and McCaffrey would be a nice change of pace. Like you have one physical big guy that can kind of wear a defense down, and then you have the twitchiness of CMC. So it kind of doesn't make sense to me why that's the case.
That's a great point because I got to be honest. I know Mitchell, he popped one run. I want to say it was like 16, 17 yards. But for the most part, I haven't been impressed with what I've seen from Eli. Whereas JP Mason, man, he's so decisive. When he gets the ball, he's hitting the hole. He's not wasting any time.
Right.
He's powerful. Like, I agree with you. I prefer JP Mason, at least right now, rather than what I'm seeing out of Eli Mitchell. I know Eli, had a phenomenal rookie year, but
he hasn't been the same since he's had,
hasn't.
had injury after injury, and they kind of build up. But he's a Shanahan favorite, and that's kind of one of the things I kind of hold against Shanahan is once he has his favorites, no matter how banged up they are, they just get the touches and they get the love over the guys that may be more healthy and maybe are more productive right now. So yeah, to me,
And you know what? And he doesn't like to take chances on the younger guys. You know, he relies on his vets, sometimes almost to a fault. Like I'm a big Braden Willis guy. I love me some B Willis.
bro,
And
all day.
we're gonna go. I don't want to name drop too many of these guys because we're about to go position by position.
I
Okay. And we're
jokingly,
gonna go down. Yeah.
I jokingly called it the University of Shanahan because he redshirts all these guys.
Yeah.
No matter how much talent they have, and yeah, we're going to talk about some of the names. Talent is talent, whether it's young, a vet, whatever. And some of these guys, I think, if they're given a chance, would do really well on offense and defense. To be honest.
Shout out to Nick in the chat. Nick, thanks for stopping by. The chat's live. Mark, you said, is Mason a bad practice player? Is that why he gets no playing time? By all reports in training camp, I thought people were glowing about Mason, that the burst was there and the vision. So what do you think about that?
Every time I see him on the field, I see him play well. That's all. I don't see him at practice. And if they're really judging people, I mean, there are people that are just better game players than practice players. So again, if Shanahan's only playing guys that practice well, then that's wrong in my opinion, because Mitchell has not shown anything in over a year. What do you have? 7 carries this last week? I think he was at less than 2 yards a carry. I haven't seen any burst from him. So like this, and Shanahan's always talking in his press conferences, well, I got to look at the film. I got to look at the film. You can't tell me you're looking at the film, seeing Mitchell get stuffed every single time. And then when Mason gets his shot, he's moving the pile. He's a big dude with big legs, and he's able to, go forward after contact. So he's a nice changer for CMC. But again, I wish somebody in the media would ask Shanahan point blank, why is Mitchell above Mason as far as the depth chart? Can you explain that? I would love to hear what his answer would be.
I agree. I want to know that same thing. And what I want to, before we get to, because I want to talk about Steve Wilks and especially some of the adjustments I saw this past game. But is there anything else you got on Shanahan, or should we transition over to Wilks?
Yeah, one question I wanted to ask you, what you thought right now is, I've been thinking about this for a little while, is Shanahan, is he Mark Jackson or is he Steve Kerr? And I say that because he's had good teams for the last few years. We know how he's coached in some of these big games, maybe being a little bit on the conservative side on things. And trust me, when it was come down to it was Josh McDaniels and Shanahan, I was like, please get Shanahan, dude is smart. But I've been watching him for now 6 years, and like there's just things about him that I think if he could change, it's okay to change. But again, that's where the stubbornness comes in. Like you're just set in your certain ways. Even Bill Walsh, I mean, I'm an OG, I'm a little older. I saw Walsh. Even though Walsh changed up on some things, I can go about that in detail on another show because it's a long explanation. But is Shanahan Mark Jackson? Is he going to get us close but not put us over the top? Or is he going to finally pull through and maybe change up some things once he gets to the playoffs in these bigger games?
Man,
what is your gut tell?
I can't call him Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's got rings, Los. Right. I cannot call him Steve Kerr. That being said, I feel like he's better than Mark Jackson, comparatively in the sport. I would almost say it's like Shanahan is like Dusty Baker when he was with the Giants. We're gonna work in all the sporting coaches here. It's like when Dusty was here, they had some good teams. Arguably best player ever. I say yes. I love me some Barry. But,
no doubt.
A loss to the Angels in 2002. They had the better team, and it was a lot of success, right? Dusty felt like we made the playoffs, every year. At least that's just from what it felt like as a kid growing up, and being a fan of the Giants. But they didn't win the big game. Right. So it's like I almost think right now Shanahan, he's like a Dusty Baker, because I think he is a little better. I think Mark Jackson, while it was a relatively short coaching
Yeah,
tenure,
he wasn't here long.
um, I wasn't the biggest. Mark Jackson, he's more of like a motivator, he's as opposed to like an X's and O's. I'm gonna draw up an inbounds play that's gonna dissect this defense. That's where I think Kerr kind of separates from Jack
Yeah.
in many ways, ball movement, and so there's many differences. But
One
I
last real,
think he's in between a Steve Kerr and a Mark Jackson comparatively.
yeah, that's fair. One real last quick point on Kyle is I just want him and the coaching staff in general, and that's another thing. Like nobody can tell Kyle what to do. He's one of the only coaches that he hired the GM, not the GM hired the coach. So Lynch can't tell him what to do. York certainly can't tell him what to do. It's not in his, sack to be able to do that. He's not Eddie D for sure. So Kyle kind of does what he wants. I hope Kyle learns from, again, wearing players down and seeing the big picture. You're old enough to remember the 2012 49er team that went to the Super Bowl against the Ravens. That was the best defense in the league. Fangio played that defense like 80 to 90% of the time. He didn't rotate anybody. He played them, until their tongues were hanging down to the floor. When they got to the Super Bowl, they made Joe Flacco look like he was Dan Marino. They were worn down. Justin Smith was beat up. Baldwin Smith was beat up. Ahmad Brooks was beat up. So you got to be able, like this week, for example, they should be able to beat Tampa Bay. I personally would rest Trent Williams one more week. That ankle could just like that again. And that I think Jalen Moore has played well enough where you can beat Tampa Bay. And Trent will probably want to play. So there's that. But you just have
I ain't doing that, Los. I ain't doing that.
Agree with that?
I wholeheartedly
it's
on that
Tampa
one.
Bay, man. You can't beat Tampa Bay and give that man another week.
Listen, man, I thought when PJ Walker was commanding the Cleveland Browns, I thought that was an easy dub. I got to be honest. As much as I liked PJ Walker in the XFL, I've kind of given up. That boat has sailed. He's not a good quarterback at the NFL level yet. He led the Browns to a win over the Niners. So if Trent says, "Hey, I'm good to go," we know he's probably not 100%, but if Trent says, "Hey, I'm good to go. I'm out there. I just played last week. You didn't see me out there pulling on that Deebo Samuel end around. You didn't see me getting 20, 30 yards downfield." So
that's good. That's good to disagree every once in a while, man.
Always. Absolutely. Have to.
Yeah.
Have to. But I want to get in on Steve Wilks because he's been under fire, man. A lot of people, talking heads, were saying he should be fired during the bye. It's like, hey, let's
slow down.
I thought that was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. All right. Now, was the call before halftime against the Vikings one of the worst defensive calls I've ever seen? Yes, but it's like, I'll give you one. Okay, you had a brain fart. I'll give you one. You make a horrible call like that a second time, then it's almost fool me once, shame on you. Fool me anyway. What I wanted to talk about Wilks. What I wanted to say about Wilks is the adjustments he made against the Jaguars I thought were exceptional. What did we see the first defensive possession? He went to that 5-man front, which was gone the past 3 weeks. We got a dose of it like early in the year, and then it just disappeared, never to return. And I like the 5-man front because what it does, Los, it makes every offensive lineman now has to block one-on-one.
Right.
No one's getting double teamed. The center isn't helping out to, double team on Hargrave. No, it's a mano. And I like mixing that in. I know they love their 4-man front because it means you got more guys in coverage, but mix in the 5-man. And then also, I call it mugging the gaps. He was bringing up Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw up towards the line of scrimmage where it was like they had like 7 players across. And at that point, like they dropped Chase Young into coverage one time. I don't want Chase Young being dropped into coverage very often, but it can throw off the offensive linemen because they're expecting Chase Young to rush. And all of a sudden he drops back and now he's like, oh, shoot, I got to find work. right? But at the same time, you could be blitzing Fred or blitzing Dre. So it's almost making the offensive linemen have to react and think more. And anytime you can make these players kind of think and lose
Right.
a step and they hesitate, you're putting your defense in a good position to make plays. So I saw him mugging the gap, and whereas felt like during the losing streak, I wasn't seeing that as much. And it's something that D'Amico and Rob Saleh did too. This has been in the defense, kind of just the formation. So I saw some of that, and then the last adjustment, because there was three main adjustments that I saw, and I talked about the 5-man front was back, how they were mugging the gap, kind of going 7 or 8 across. But the last thing, and it might be the most important, but I was seeing some tighter coverage. It wasn't so soft.
Man to
There
man.
was more man. There was more man. There was some press man, but it wasn't so soft. They weren't giving up these 7-yard curl routes, and that a wide receiver can catch it for 7, and then they fall forward and they get a couple more, and next thing you know, it's a first down.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a tighter coverage. So I commend Steve Wilkes for making the adjustments, because I thought he did. What do you think about Wilkes, kind of his general performance this year, but also what you saw versus the Jags defensively?
I think Wilkes is a good defensive coach. I think his resume kind of speaks for itself. I've never understood why the Niners don't use a 5-man line, defensive line more. That is the strength of their team. That is what they've put so much resources and draft picks into their D line. They keep talking about how much depth they have at D line more than any other position. So the 5-man line has been around for a while, and it's not run often. I don't know why. If you have a great defensive line in depth, why not? Because like you said, it forces teams to not be able to double Bosa or Chase or Armstead or Hargrave or now Gregory. And one thing that I really loved that Wilkes did, and I talked about it with some of my buddies, I was like, are they going to be creative enough to use Chase and Nick next to each other, not just on defensive ends? That's too easy. Remember how Justin Smith and Aldon Smith used to run stunts? Boom.
Well, Justin Smith was the best at that. Justin Smith would take
Yes,
two
he
guys,
was. Yes,
and
he was.
Alden Smith was special, but I
Man,
chalk
Aldon
up
Smith.
a chunk of those sacks to just
Oh,
Justin Smith.
Justin.
He would bull rush the guard and just wipe out the tackle at the same time, and then
Right.
Alden would just loop into the inside.
They would call defensive holding now on Justin, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. But Chase Young is a big dude, like and strong like Justin. So you put them together, and they did that in this game, but they did it over the center, which was interesting. So I like, again, getting back to the stubbornness type of thing, I like coaches that are not just set in their ways and change things up. Wilkes swallowed his pride. He's comfortable in the booth. He had to do it, obviously, because his boss told him to, and he went down on the field. He made adjustments. He also brought Ambry Thomas in, and he put Oliver to the bench. He finally realized that Oliver could not stay with shifty, quick receivers. It took them 10 weeks to do it, but they finally realized that. And so, yeah, I thought his adjustments were really good. And, the coaching staff has got to understand, you got to play to your opponent. You got to play to what your opponent does well, and change up, schemes to be able to get, the most positive results as possible. So I thought he did a good job this week. And coming up with the Tampa game, he's got two different kind of receivers. He's got big receivers in Godwin and Evans. So maybe they go back to a little bit more zone, because they're quite bigger than our corners. And we don't need to see Charvarius Ward having 4 defensive holding calls, because he can't stay with them. But I love the man-to-man. I'm not a huge fan of zone. I think if you're a corner and you get paid corner money, you should be able to get your hands on receivers and direct them and move them and stay with them as long as you can. And with our pass rush, supposedly, shouldn't be that long.
Yeah, a couple, on sometimes late at night on YouTube, I'll go through kind of the rabbit hole of just watching, I watched a Nick Saban X's and O's he was up on a whiteboard just drawing his defense because he's a defensive guy, Saban. And him
Yep.
and Belichick philosophically, they're predominantly man. I think any good defensive coordinator will mix it up, but
Agree.
they like predominantly it's man with a single high and then with a robber.
Yep.
That's kind of they're mixing it up, but they like that cover one man. And the Niners do mix it in, but I felt like you're right. It did look like we saw a little more press man, and we'll see how this evolves because I
But
think that does fit Ambry Thomas a little more than Isaiah Oliver. Like Oliver, if he tries to press, a wide receiver has a clean release, stacks him, and he's
right,
gone. Like Oliver,
right.
he ain't catching him.
And Womack and Luter may be back, and Womack has proven to be a good, stick man-to-man type of guy in the slot and on the outside. There's this guy floating around with the Patriots that just got released that is, I keep hearing, is pretty interesting. Jack Jones.
I think he got claimed by the
He
Raiders.
did get claimed. Okay.
Yeah, Raiders
So,
snagged him.
yeah, so that would have been an interesting pickup. But yeah, with Luter and Womack coming back, um, and Ambry Thomas, we'll see if Ambry Thomas can build on it because he's had good games before, and then he goes right back to the doghouse. So let's see if he can get a little roll and get consistent and stay out there on the corner.
Love it. Any last coaching thoughts? If I want to hit on Chris Forster. I think Chris Forster, that's the offensive line coach. Some of these guys have warts. I think he's doing the best he can with what he's got. A chef is only as good as his ingredients, right? So,
Absolutely.
the right tackle, man, the right guard, man, but the off. So I think
Let me ask you,
Forrester's doing what
let
he
me ask
can.
you
What's up?
right off the bat on O line. Why did it take them so long to put Feliciano on the lineup? I thought he was one of the best 5 offensive linemen coming out of camp. I think he should have been starting definitely over Burford and maybe even over Brendel because if the Niners are going to beat the Eagles and some of these other physical teams, Feliciano's a physical guy. And again, it took them 10 weeks to get him into the lineup. So you're
They
right.
don't even get credit for that though, Los, because the only reason he's playing is because Banks went down with the toe.
Right.
So,
Right.
and then Kyle did say, like within the last week, I've heard it reported. He said that they were looking to get Feliciano more reps because he's deserving of reps. So it sounded like even if Banks hadn't gotten dinged up, maybe he was going to start rotating with Burford. They did it last year with Brunskill and Burford, but I agree
Right.
with you. Like, Burford, well, I don't think he's doing terrible. He's not blowing people off the ball either. I see him getting pushed back a couple steps, right? For the most, like he's doing all right. But do you want to settle for all right, Los, or do you
No,
want to strive for something that could be potentially better in
no.
Feliciano? So even when Banks comes back, I'm with you. Maybe give him a look at right guard and Brendel, man, that's
He's
the
a
thing
technician. Yeah,
with
Brendel's a technician. Very good technique, but he's not a big center, and
no.
he gets bullied by those 330,
You see it. You
340
see it on
pound.
the 4th and 1, on like 4th and 1s and 3rd and 1s. You can kind of see him get knocked back in some of those key short down and distances and stuff like that can stymie a drive.
And Kyle likes to
Where
run up the middle on those short yardage with a smaller back in McCaffrey. So, you notice that a lot of 3rd and 4th and 1s, they don't get it because their center gets pushed back, Burford gets pushed back, and they're handing it to, as great as McCaffrey is. Like, I love Barry Sanders, but I would rather give the ball to Earl Campbell on 3rd and 1 than Barry Sanders. You know what I mean? Size matters as far as that goes on short yardage. So, yeah, Brendel's good, but I think he has trouble with bigger defensive linemen. So you're right. Forster is kind of forced to work with, the right side, at least being kind of average right now. And I know they picked up a couple of guys off waivers, but they're on waivers for a reason. So we'll see what happens there. But would love to see Feliciano get back in the lineup or get into the lineup and stay there at right guard because Banks and Feliciano at guards, that's physical. I like that.
Love it. Love it. You know what I want to do now, Los? I want to get into some positions. So let me pull up Let me pull up a banner here. We're going to start off with the quarterback position. I want to hear your thoughts on Brock. You know, it's a heavily debated topic, at least, you know, on Twitter. It's just there's two completely contrasting conversations going on where some people, you know, just do not believe in Brock long term, and some will tell you, man, this guy's playing like a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. So what? And I'll start it off first
Yeah.
because I'm I'm a believer in Brock. I think Brock's been playing really good football. And that being said, the untimely turnovers, he's got to clean that up. And even, you know, that first pass, the first touchdown pass to BA was a little risky. But overall, I think Brock Purdy's playing really freaking good football, Los. Like, I'm talking, this is the best quarterback play. You know, I know Kaepernick kind of had a run, but it's like I believe in what I'm seeing in the execution of Brock Purdy. Like I think that's better than even kind of peak Kaepernick. And that
Decision
being said,
making.
to take that back, you know, Jeff Garcia, I was a little young for Jeff, but I did like Jeff Garcia. I thought he was good. So right there. But what do you think about Brock and his performance this year?
Look, bro, I've watched quarterbacks since the 80s. I've seen some of the best. They've all had bad games. They've all had turnovers in crucial situations. We're in a social media and a YouTube and a Twitter stage where everybody and their mama has an opinion. People that don't like the 49ers are just waiting for the guy to make a mistake and then immediately are there typing out what their little comment is going to be. So I don't pay any attention to that. I think Purdy's strengths are his processing skills, his ability to go from option 1 to option 4 fast. That's very Montana like. No, I'm not comparing him to Montana. I'm saying his processing skills are kind of similar, arm strength, more mobility than you think. His touchdown to interception ratio is really good. He makes good decisions. I would like to see him throw to Kittle was amazing. That's one of the better throws I've seen from a 49er quarterback, period. If you look at the throw, he didn't step into that. I mean, for a guy that has no arm, he basically just was all arm. And think about this. And I don't know if this has been brought up much, but you got to remember this guy had a major elbow surgery. And at the beginning of the year, what if he's only like 80, 85%? You know, maybe his arm is getting a little bit stronger as the year goes on, because I don't know if he makes that throw at the beginning of the year. He did not step into it. He was being
and he couldn't follow through. He couldn't even follow through.
He just kind of chucked it. And, you know, it went about 30, 35 yards. It didn't go a long distance, but it was a dime, like right on the money. So think about if he steps into that, you know, maybe he can throw that 40, 50 yards. So I think his arm is a little bit better than people give him credit for. I don't know if Shanahan calls a lot of those plays, though. So, you know, we got to think about that. But what he does for this offense, how he is able to his processing speed is off the charts. And his accuracy, for the most part, is off the charts. And you know what? Those are two important things that I want in a quarterback more than a cannon of an arm. So I think I haven't seen a player dissected so hard, like because he was the last pick in the draft. So people, you know, the funny one that cracks me up is, well, if he comes back to earth when he doesn't have his weapons. Yeah, let me see how Tua plays without Waddle and Tyreek. You know, come on, what are we talking about here? Like, you got to come up with better things than that. People say some of the stupidest things. So Brock, to me, is probably right on that cusp of top 5, maybe in my opinion, like that 6 to 8 range. But real happy with him. He's one of the least concerns I have on this team.
Yeah, he's playing like a top 10 quarterback, close. And you mentioned, you know, the accuracy and some other strengths that I love. The pocket presence, his cat-like quickness, Los. How many times have we seen a free rusher coming at him, and he's got this ability to make a miss, escape the pocket, and then make a play on the run? So it's the pocket presence, which also turns into the playmaking ability.
Right.
You know,
right. He keeps his eyes up.
Yeah. Kyle wants you to play within the structure, right? Because he's got these genius plays and he's scheming guys open, but not every time. Not every play is a receiver running with 5 yards of separation. Like he does draw up quite often. So having that playmaking ability that Brock can show off, man, I love it. It's one of my favorite attributes of Brock, along with his accuracy and, like you said, his processing. Absolutely. Feels like Brock knows where all 22 players are at on the field, practically.
Exactly. Yeah, you hit it right on the spot. Do you think Shanahan gives him the power to audible or not yet? Because I don't yet.
It's two plays. He'll give him two
Give him two
plays,
plays and two options.
and it's he'll go. And I feel like a lot of times it's a pass and a run, Los. So
Yeah,
the answer, I feel like the answer is no. I think a lot of these other quarterbacks have more freedom. Maybe they can change a route to a player, whereas Kyle, like he might give you two plays and I don't even think that's every down. That's like occasionally, and it's kill, kill, kill to go to play two.
and I don't know the answer to that if that's because Brock is still young. He's only playing his 17th, 18th game this
I think
weekend.
that's just Kyle's ego,
Or
Los.
is that Kyle's ego and
It's
Kyle
Kyle's ego.
kind of controlling, and that's
Exactly what it is.
That's kind of one of the things that I don't like about him. Like Brock, we all agree, I think, is very smart. He's played in a lot of games in college. He's now played at the NFL level for quite a while. I think I would trust Brock if you're the quarterback and Channy calls a play, and maybe it's a dig route, and right before the snap, the safety moves over, and Brock sees that. He's the one that's on the field. He should be able to change to a play that's going towards the sidelines because the safety moved over to the middle and cheated. But if Shanahan's saying, no, you still got to run my play no matter what, see, I don't like that. And I don't know, so I'm speculating here. But if he does not allow Purdy to audible, I think that's a mistake because I think that would open up the offense more. And, it puts confidence and trust in your quarterback if you let him do that.
I agree with you. I'm gonna tell you something that makes it a little more difficult. I think to have these audibles in place. How many motions does Kyle have already scripted into his plays?
Good
So you
point.
get up there,
Run out
okay,
of time.
and they're gonna run. A lot of times we snap the ball. There's only 2 or 3 seconds left on the play clock. So and now, okay, if you audible, I'm sure there's still got to be like 3 or 4 motions that got to happen. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's enough time on the play clock
That's
to
a great point.
accomplish all that.
That's a fantastic point. And I think Shanahan would, if you ask him, well, can you give up some motions to be able to, have the play go off in 10 seconds and in case you have an audible, I bet you would say, no, we got to have motions on every play. So that is a fantastic point.
We motion.
Yeah, this is what we do, man. Don't ask me. You notice him at the press conference, like he really talks down to like some of these guys when they ask any kind of a question that he feels like he's just like, really, like he's an arrogant dude, man, which is good in some way, but again, the stubbornness, like you got to be open minded because I think the great coaches. That separates the great coaches from the good coaches, so the ones that are open minded and will change.
Yeah, not that personable. Not that personable.
No,
Guy.
not at all. I didn't like the story that came out about him not talking to Jimmy Ward either after he didn't want to go in on Richard Sherman's podcast. That's one of your leaders, and he ended up leaving, and you replaced him with Isaiah Oliver. You lost that trade right there. So it is what it is.
All right. Why don't we? I want to hit a bunch of positions low, so I want to move over to the offensive line, and we've kind of touched on it. It sounds like we're in agreement that Feliciano needs some more reps. I mean, we've talked some O line. McKivitz, I don't think there's a move to be made at tackle. Well, I mean, actually, Nick was in the chat. Shout out to Nick in the chat. He was saying Jalen Moore. What are you thinking about right tackle? Do you think Jalen Moore is a legitimate option? Because right now, at this point of this season, Los, anything that happens is going to be internal, right?
Yeah.
The trade deadline's passed and no one trades offensive linemen anyway. So whatever move they could potentially make, that guy is already in-house. So Jalen Moore, Matt Pryor, who I haven't seen enough of to really give you an honest opinion on Pryor.
Too light, man. He gets pushed around too easy. I don't even know how he made the team, but Jalen Moore's played well for Trent. And McKivitz, I think, is banged up. So I don't know if he's questionable, but he got banged up in the Jaguars game, so Moore might have to play there. And I think if he plays there, he might stay there because he really showed improvement at left tackle, where you're going up against the best pass rushers. So at right tackle, you need to be a little bit more of a physical run dog, and he is. He's a big dude. So yeah, I would feel pretty comfortable with Moore at right tackle. And if he beats out McKivitz, he beats out McKivitz. Right now, man, it's about getting that ring. And you put the best people on the field that you can. F all the politics and favorites and this and that. Put the best people on the field that you can.
Absolutely. I'm in agreement with you there. And I want to get back to Brendel at center. And
Yeah.
we talked about he's kind of light. He can kind of get bullied, especially on some of these short yardage. But the thing with Brendel is he does get downfield and make blocks at the second and third level on some of these run plays. Like I saw him make, I want to say it was on the Debo Samuel end around. You see him going 20 yards downfield and making a block. So it's like Brendel does some good things, as a movement blocker. He's pretty agile. He's got good speed for a center. But it's like there's a turnoff there because like we talked about, he can get bullied at these inopportune times. 4th and 1, you got to convert it to keep the drive going, and he's getting knocked backwards, and that kind of throws the run game or the quarterback sneak, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to convert those.
The thing about center is it's, I think, a harder position to rotate guys because they're making all the calls at the line of scrimmage. You can swap out Burford and Brunskill or Burford and Feliciano later on this year,
and even that is kind of taboo. That's not the norm. That is not normal to platoon offensive linemen like they did last year. In center, I agree with you. You cannot do that at center.
I've always wondered about that because they rotate defensive line a lot, but offensive line, I think, has to be more of a cohesive unit, and you have to have like the same guys out there that have been working all week and every little inch as far as like because they run the zone the outside zone offense as far as running the ball a lot. They don't do a lot of man-to-man stuff, so the line has to be cohesive. So yeah, you're right, swapping out and rotating is probably not the thing, but Feliciano can play center as well. So just throwing it out there, if you got a physical center next to a physical guard, next to a physical left tackle, now we're talking about something. But he's got to beat Brendel out. Brendel, I think, is a good player, but it's all about matchups, man. And when he goes against the big boys, it's not a good matchup for the Niners.
Yeah, you don't want Brendel one-on-one with like a Chris Jones or even like a Jalen Carter. I'm watching that Eagles line. I don't know how Jalen Carter slipped to whatever pick 8, wherever the Eagles got him. I was very pissed off about that because I did not want him to go to that team.
Yeah, I can't believe he fell that far, to be honest. They basically swapped out him for Hargrave.
They did. Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did. So next on the list is running backs, Los. And we know Christian McCaffrey, he's the man, the 17-game TD streak, which I wasn't a fan of, gunning for it late in that Jags game, bringing it. All the backups are on the field. Everyone else was benched. All the starters, all the studs at least, were on the sideline.
Yeah.
And you bring McCaffrey out there. Look, he got the 17-game touchdown streak within the flow of games. He got all those touchdowns within the flow of the game. You didn't have to force him anything to get one at the end of the game. Like that's right. I wasn't a fan of it. I'm not gonna be irate about it because I understand, probably the team wanted McCaffrey to get that record. But it's like you gotta sometimes and when do coaches care about individual accolades? Like when has that been a thing? Right?
That's always been about winning the game and persevering, but that was a little bit interesting to get that. Football is. Can you imagine how much heat he would get if he pulled a hammy or if he got hurt and was out a few weeks? Ooh. But like I said, Shanny don't care because nobody tells him what to do. He does what he wants to do. And I
Yeah.
would be really curious. And CMC would never say this on camera. Like he's going to say the right team answer. Oh yeah, But if you asked him off camera, I'd be really interested what he would say if he really wanted that record, or it's like, nah, I'm good. I want to be healthy. I want to help this team win a Super Bowl. So I don't want to take the chance. The risk is not worth the reward. And it was just 4 plays, but that's all it takes. One guy to fall on his ankle wrong or fall on his knee. So hated it, to be honest, but he got out of it, so we're good.
Yes. Yeah. And we've already kind of discussed, both of us like some JP Mason, and it sounds like both of us would probably prefer him to get some of these carries as opposed to Eli Mitchell.
Yep.
So we hear our team JP Mason.
Mason. Yep, we are.
Why don't we move over to the wide receiver position, man? Brandon Ayuk. I think this dude's he's outperformed my expectations, Los. I got to be honest. When we drafted him out of Arizona State, I didn't think he was going to be this dynamic.
You didn't know
He
much
was
about coming out?
well, I watched a couple games of film and then, the YouTube highlights, and it's just I wasn't enamored with his route running technique. Like I didn't think he was pinpoint on some of his routes where he was very sudden. He's got really good acceleration. That popped out to me. But just as a technician of a route runner, he's not Keenan Allen, but he doesn't need to be Keenan Allen.
That was the same draft as Justin Jefferson, who went about 23, 24 to Minnesota.
And that was with Henry Ruggs and CeeDee Lamb. I got to tell you, Los, Ruggs was my guy. That was who I wanted.
Love that speed at Alabama.
I wanted Ruggs on the Niners, and it's his situation. We know what's going on there.
Yeah,
we
definitely.
just pray for the family. But Ruggs was my guy. CeeDee Lamb. I hated it, but on my Straight Out of the Bay show, like earlier this year, I had to defend CeeDee Lamb. Some of my guys were kind of talking as if CeeDee Lamb like wasn't that guy. And I was like, guys, dude, CeeDee Lamb's really freaking good. Like CeeDee Lamb or BA. Like to me, they might be in the same tier, but I gotta be honest, I think I would prefer CeeDee Lamb.
Just seems like a little more explosive, can catch the deep ball, but then maybe they run those deep ball post routes a little bit more over in Dallas. Ayuk, I think in an offense, Ayuk in Kansas City would be filthy. This is a run-oriented offense, first of all. So Ayuk, for being in an offense where he touches the ball maybe 6 to 8 times at the most, he makes the most of those plays. He is a little, I would say, kind of, if you look at his routes, almost 60 to 75% of his catches seem to be, dig routes, 12 to 15 yards over the middle. Again, I don't see many out routes. I don't see many. I will say this. I'm sure like you, we watch a lot of all 22. And I saw that man run a lot of post routes with Jimmy, and he would get behind the defender, like really get behind the defender, hand up like Jerry used to do. I'm open. Jimmy wouldn't throw him the ball.
No.
And you could see his body language like, God damn, like, what do I got to do? I got open. Throw me the damn ball. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. I think Ayuk is a bona fide one, especially for our offense and what he's asked to do. And he blocks, man, like all our receivers do.
Well, that's a requirement.
Yeah, that I love about Shanahan. Like you can be the greatest catcher of a ball, but if you don't block on my team, you're not going to play. And I love that because that opens up the running game big time.
That's one thing that separates the Niners from a lot of other teams that I watch on Sundays is that our wide receivers it's a requirement to block and be physical in the run game, but also on the defense, Los, our DBs tackle, our corners. Yeah. A lot of these teams, the corners, they have no interest in sticking their nose in there, getting their nose dirty and getting physical, tackling a running back. But, our corners, the coverage we can talk about, but they tackle.
Yeah.
But to put on, just to kind of wrap up on BA, and then we can talk some other receivers. But to put a bow on BA, you're right. Everything, 75% of his catches are over the middle.
Yep.
Post and posts, digs, a lot of slants, right? And he
Yep.
runs. I say BA runs the slant route as good as any wide receiver in the NFL. Like
Haven't seen that much
it's
lately.
so sudden.
Yeah. We saw it
Not
early in the year, and he kind of got away from it for some reason.
They need
But
to get back to it because it's off the play action when the linebackers they take one false step up, and next thing you know that's what opens up the hole for the slant route. But what I want to do is I want more sluggos, Los. I
yeah,
want more slant, or even like if it's a post, like a post and go, where
that is
you
my
know
favorite
it's
route by a wide receiver. What you just said, I love that route because aggressive corners, you can beat them on that all day. They're just
and
jumping
we
at.
run so many. We run
Yeah,
so many slants. Like that's got
yeah.
to be on the DB's mind.
Or
So
the
then
out
you
and up.
counter off it.
Yeah, the
Yeah, the
out and
out
up
and
as
up,
well.
out and
Yeah,
up.
both
You
of
need to
those.
be blocked well. Both
They
of
needed
them,
need the
both
time.
of them. The O line's got to hold up for at least 2 seconds so the route can develop. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
when it's there, man, it's a chunk play. And just with the amount of single high safeties and teams loading the box, man, I want more sluggos.
Yeah. I do too. I want those big chunk plays for sure. We'll see if Shanahan can put that more into the offense. He runs a lot of like Ray runs. Anybody that does have speed, they're almost decoys. They're always clear out guys. If you watch the all 22, these guys that do have speed, they run. But the defense knows like it's not going to you, so I'm not even going to run with you. I'm going to take the shorter route because I know that's where you're going to go with the ball. And I think for the Niners and their passing game to get to the next level, even if you don't complete it, you got to keep them honest. Like chuck it down and make them respect those post routes from Ray or Danny Gray in his 4.27 speed if he ever gets on the field. Um, Debo and Ayuk are not slow guys. I saw both of them at ASU in South Carolina run post routes and catch long touchdown passes. But again, it's not asked in this offense.
That's something I think Debo can win down the field, Los.
He
Like,
can too.
we use him so much, on in the screen game, and rightfully so. He's so good after the
So
catch,
good.
but I think Debo can do more. I think he can win down the field, and even with
1,000%.
some. While he's only 5'10", Debo's a bully. Like I kind of trust him in some contested catch
Yep.
situations where he's just going to kind of outmuscle the DB. He did it early in his career. I want to say his rookie year, like there was a one-on-one down the sideline, and Jimmy actually gave him a chance, and he just bullied the DB, snagged it, and it was a touchdown. And that always stands out to me because it's like you don't see it as much, but man, I think Debo can do more than be just kind of this little gadget guy who you handballs off to, and
All day,
you
all day.
you
And
give
and
him.
you do more of that, and you just you don't get him pounded as much as he does on the wide receiver screens and the running back toss plays. I mean, you're right, but they know he's great at that. But the thing about it in pro sports, when the opposition knows what you're going to do, it's when you do what they don't think you're going to do. To me, that's great coaching. Like they know that Ayuk's going to run a 12-yard, 15-yard dig. They know Debo's going to run a wide receiver screen. If you throw them on both all go routes and you throw it to them, they're going to be like, whoa, we didn't see this on film. They never do that. And that's coaching. That's coaching. And that's how you hit a team when they don't. They think you're doing this and you go here. So, yeah, I think they both can do it, bro.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. And then just to kind of wrap up on the wideouts, you kind of touched on Danny Gray. I liked me some Danny Gray coming out of SMU. We haven't seen him at all this year. I know he was dinged up. Like, is he healthy? I
I
should
have
probably know. I should probably know this, but it's just like, I mean, he's being scratched. He's not suiting up. I think Ronnie Bell, it's pretty clear, has surpassed him in the depth chart.
I would love to see more Ronnie Bell in 3 wide receiver. I like Jennings, don't get me wrong, but again, he's a one-trick pony. Like he does out routes on 3rd and 10. That's all he does. And I know he's physical, and I know Shanahan is obsessed with being the most physical
That's
team.
funny because that's so right. That's funny because it's so right. Jawan
Yeah,
Jennings and his out routes.
yeah. I've seen if you have a career film on Juwan Jennings, it's always to the sidelines for about 8 to 12 yards. Am I lying, bro?
No,
Like nothing's
that's it.
seen. No, he's a big dude. Why can't he run a slant? Like it's just it's baffling. Like in the teams see it on film. Jennings is going to run an out route. Jennings is going to run an out route. And it's like do something that I know they're capable of it. I know if you ask Jennings, he's like, yeah, I can do all those things, but I'm not asked to. If you ask Debo, again, off camera, they're not going to say it on camera. They can't piss off the organization. Yeah, I can run a post route, but they don't. So I would love to see more Ronnie Bell. I think Ronnie Bell could be because he adds a little bit of speed. That's the one thing that I think is a little bit lacking in the wide receiver room is just that they don't have guys that can break away from you. You know, they have guys that just like they'll run through you. They're great after the catch, but they got to break some tackles to do it. They don't get a lot of separation. I mean, you don't see guys completely wide open, and if they are, it's because
I think
Shanahan
BA. I think BA is a
is the one
separator.
guy that can do that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
his change of direction is really special.
yeah. He's so sudden. His when he's running a route, like I said, especially the slant routes and the post routes, those in breakers, he sticks his foot in the ground, and it's such a sharp, decisive cut, and that's where he oftentimes separates from the DV. Runs the in breaking routes as good as any wide receiver in the NFL. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Let's see what tight end is next.
Oh boy,
George Kittle,
I'm gonna
three
go off on this
catches,
one. Go
100
ahead.
yards. Kittle, it's you never quite know what kind of Kittle games it's going to be. He might have 5 catches for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, or he might have 1 catch and they only targeted him 2 times. So and then after him, Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly, these guys haven't been doing much. Like maybe a catch here and there.
I'm about
I'm
to go
a
off on them. But
please,
Kittle's
please.
definitely not a guy you want to draft in fantasy because like he's going to get you 22 points in 1 week and get you half a point the next week. I think if they need a little protection because they're not feeling good about going against a certain pass rush, I think he's asked to stay in and block a little bit more, or if they want to establish more of the running game. Um, the backup tight ends is one of my biggest pet peeves about the organization. I am not a fan of Dwelly or Charlie Warner. I have no idea why they continue to be on the roster. You can grab a lot of guys to just simply block. They never get the. I think Dwelly caught his first ball earlier this year. I haven't seen him catch a ball in 2 years. You mentioned earlier in the show, Braden Willis, that kid from Oklahoma has hands. He has speed. He is a weapon.
And he's
Again,
tough, Los. He's
yes,
tough.
he is. Yes, he is. He has all the traits and characteristics of a good number 2 tight end, which the Niners have been looking for a long time. And he's right there on the roster. But again, he's a young guy. Maybe Shanahan's playbook is like this big, and maybe rookies can't figure it out because it's calculus. It ain't basic math. So maybe it takes him 2 years. Maybe that's why he redshirts everybody. I don't know. But I know that kid is talented. I know he has so much more talent than Dwelly and Warner, and he could be another weapon to make the offense more dynamic, but he's not given the chance. So don't understand it. And they drafted Latu as well. And to me, Willis was better coming out of the draft than Latu.
I agree with you there. Tight end was a position, that I try to do some draft analysis, but I can't hit every position. But tight end was one that I did study and watch some film on, and I like
This
to
was
break
a good year
like
for tight end.
Latu. One of the first things I wrote on Latu was like he's big, he moves well, but I not overly impressed. Like that's what I wrote. It just wasn't that impressive what I was seeing. Like it wasn't jumping out. Some guys jump out at you. And
Sam
Willis,
Laporta. I wanted Sam Laporta from Iowa.
Laporta's my guy. You know who my comp for Laporta was? Is because when I was watching the film, another Iowa tight end just came into my mind. He was working with Peyton Manning in Indy, Dallas Clark. I saw a
Yeah.
lot of similarities between Laporta
Yep.
and Dallas Clark, just kind of the size, the way they move. Like they're more of pass catching tight ends. Like I wouldn't say Laporta's a mall or
This
you
is
know
this was one of the. You sound like a draft guru like me. I mean, I when I had more time back in the day, I used to really get into it. Um, this was one of the best years for tight ends I've seen in a long time. You got
yeah.
Kincaid, you got Laporta.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
You
you
know,
got
Daryl Washington's with the Steelers. I think he's more of a blocker. I think he's can be a dominant blocker.
I didn't know
You know,
much
you
about
got
Willis, but
yeah,
when I started studying him, I'm like, man, this he wasn't drafted very high because he shared um, tight end duties at Oklahoma with another guy, so he didn't have the big numbers. But when you watch him on film and how good his hands are and how quickly he separates, you're like, oh wow, they got a steal here. And all they talked about was how good he was in camp. Again, it's like such a tease, like, oh, he's great in camp. Okay, where is he? We're 10 weeks into the season. You're not going to tell me Dwelly and Warner are better than him. They may be better at blocking. Again, that's a Shanahan thing. But as far as explosive plays downfield, I think he would open it up for Kittle and himself.
and Los. What I want to say is I think Willis is actually a really good blocker. He's not the biggest guy, but Los, what I saw of him at Oklahoma, he's not the biggest, but he gives everything he's got on every play. Like I
Yeah.
told you, I watched a lot of tight ends. Some tight ends, they're not really interested in being a dominant blocker. Like they just kind of get in the way when they're blocking. But Willis, I watched him come across like on a wham block, and the Niners asked Kittle and some tight ends to pick up a defensive end, but you got to go cross formation as it snapped. And
Yeah.
Willis is just, as soon as it's snapped, he just beelines full speed and just shoves his shoulder into the chest of it, just crumbled a defensive end. And when I saw that, I was like, this dude Willis,
Got some
he's
here.
physical, like he brings it. And it's like, then you keep watching, and it's every snap. He just gives everything he has in his body. So I'm a big B Willis guy. I wish he would get a chance. You know, we talked about, we know Kyle's kind of hesitant and apprehensive to play rookies sometimes, and even young guys for that matter, just like JP Mason, you know.
He's a second year guy. And
I know, and he's still can't get on the field.
it's baffling. It's definitely something that irritates me about him. But yeah, and Willis is going to get bigger. He's going to, get in the weight room and the conditioning, and he's going to get better. And he may be the heir apparent to Kittle when it's all said and done. I don't think it's
No
going to
doubt.
be and Warner for sure.
I'm with you there. So we hit on all the offense, Los. We'll touch up on the defensive positions maybe another day, because I want to pick your brain about this 49ers Bucks preview and just what your general thoughts are coming into this game. It's another road game. It'll be in Tampa. It should be 10 a.m., right? I should know that. Get my schedule ready for Sunday.
This game's at home. It's a home game.
Excuse me, Los. This game's at 105 and it's at home.
Yeah.
So shame on me for getting that confused. But I want to pick your brain. I want to pick your brain about this matchup, because the Bucks coming into this thing, I believe they're 4-5. I think they're 4-5. They're second in the NFC South behind the Saints, who are 5-5. That division might be the worst division in football right now, that NFC South. But Bucks are 4-5. Baker, I don't think Baker's the main problem with that team. He's not good, but overall, Baker, what do we got? Baker's, I mean, he's got, he's got 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I wanted to pull that up, but I don't think he's you spoke about some of the weapons earlier, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rashad White is good in the passing game. He's good in the passing game, but he can't run the rock. I see you shaking your head. It sounds like you're not impressed with Rashad White as a runner. Neither am I. But what are you thinking about this matchup?
I mean, on paper, this game should be a layup. The Bucks can't run the ball. The Niners should be able to make them one-dimensional. I'm worried more about the Niners' mental state of mind. Every time the Niners start thinking they're the shit, they're like the big boss, they get into trouble. And they have to. I mean, Warner keeps alluding to it. We got to take one game at a time. We got to take one game. I mean, but you say that, but you really are not doing that. So, after the Dallas game, they were kind of feeling the ropes a little bit, and we saw what happened. Now, Tampa's not as good as Cleveland, and the game is at home, but you just never know. The Niners need to handle their business. They need to be able to get after Mayfield. They should be able to make them one-dimensional because they have no running game. They only have Tristan Wirfs, who I wanted, by the way, on the Niners, as a good lineman. The rest of their guys are pretty booty. So the Niners D-line should dominate, whether it's 4 or 5 guys. On offense, they've got some playmakers over there on Tampa. Lavonte David at linebacker is pretty special, but the Niners should be able to control the game. I would expect the running game to have CMC to have a good game and them to control. They need to control the clock, keep their defense off the field. So I'm expecting the Niners to take care of business as long as they're right here. Don't get too full of yourselves, man. Know that any team can beat you if you don't step up and play well that week.
Absolutely. Now's not the time to let up. You don't. We already had that 3-game lull. Let's keep the foot on the gas. Keep playing that 49er football that we know is within this team. We know how good this team can be. When the 49ers play their A game, Los, they're the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. Can you bring it every week?
Don't look ahead to Seattle and Philadelphia because it's easy to. Those are 2 big games on the calendar. Take care of Tampa. Hopefully you can get out to a bigger lead and, be able to rest some players in the fourth quarter. But, just take care of your business week to week.
Now, looking at – I got the Tampa Bay depth chart pulled up here. And while the Niners have the best linebacking core in the NFL, the Bucs linebacker core is pretty good. You mentioned Lavonte David. Devin White, he's flashy. Like, he makes some splash plays. Like, he's really good at blitzing. But I think you can kind of get him out of position.
You can block him.
You can block him. He's smaller.
He's trying to make a splash play to right, so he kind of goes upfield too much, and he leaves the gap wide open.
Yes. You can kind of take advantage of him there. The one defender I really like on that team is Antoine Winfield, the safety. I think he's really good.
Vita Vea on the defensive line.
Vita Vea, man.
He's physical.
They got it's kind of funny, Los, because their D tackles, they got Vita Vea, as we know, is gigantic. He's huge. He's strong as hell.
That's a problem. Then they got
like we've been talking that about. Let's monitor that, because if they get some one-on-one matchups with him on Brendel, that's going to be a problem. So monitor that. But they got the contrasting styles at D tackle. They got Vita Vea, and then they got Kalia Cansey out of Pitt, who's a smaller guy. He's like 6 foot, but he's quick as a cat.
Very
defensive tackle. He's not Aaron Donald, but just kind of like a similar mold. He can present like similar problems with his quickness and his pass rushing ability. So monitor that.
Yeah, their defensive side of the football is their strength more than their offense, for sure.
That's what you would think. That's what I thought too, just kind of knowing who's on that team. Carlton Davis, although I think he's banged up, he's pretty good. Jamel Dean's been around for a while, so I would figure they had a good defense statistically. Or PFF has them rated as the 30th defense in the NFL, Los. Take that with a grain of salt. We all know PFF.
They're on the field a lot. I think the offense has a lot of 3-and-outs, and they're on the field a lot, and they get maybe worn down. So their defense is better than that. But, Baker's made some plays this year when he has time. You don't want to have him having too much time and letting Evans and Godwin running free in the secondary. So, again, this should be a layup, but don't take it for granted that it is. And handle your assignments and handle your business and keep that momentum going.
Absolutely. And what I'm going to say is limit the big play, because the Bucs they're not going to be able to run the ball on us consistently. They're not, at least in my opinion. I'm forecasting them to average like sub 3 yards a carry against this Niner defense. The only way the Bucs can stay in this game is if Mike Evans is making plays down the field.
Yeah.
If he catches a couple 50-50 balls, maybe one of them's a long touchdown, or or maybe Ward is getting too handsy. 7 penalties for Charvarius Ward in the last 3 games. Los,
Can you
7 penalties in
can
3
you
games.
stop
Like
holding people, man? Please, can you
I
let
said
that?
on Straight Out of the Bay, maybe they need to just like tape his hands up so he can't grab. Like he might not be able to pick a ball off. He might not be able to intercept it, but at least like he won't be able to grab.
I
Like
love it.
just
I
put
love
some
the
clubs
creativity.
on there. Offensive, defensive line. We see some clubs on these guys, but just club them up because Charvarius. In all seriousness, Charvarius, dude, take your hands off these guys, man.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when they go to the 5-man liney, they're taking Burks off the field as linebacker, huh? They're just going with Greenlaw and Warner.
Yes, yes.
Because I thought like the third linebacker, that's another young guy. Jalen Graham could be really, really good if they played him. He's really good. Again, buried on the depth chart. But yeah, I think they're going to play the 5-man line. I think they like that. And I can't see them running the ball. But then I didn't see the Vikings running the ball in the Niners, and they kind of did. So hopefully they've kind of fixed that whole run gap scheme. I'm assuming Wilkes is going to be on the sideline again. So, yeah, I don't expect Tampa to have a big offensive day.
No, me either. Me either, Los. John says refs keep calling ticky-tack calls on Ward. They need to let those soft plays go. I think 1 or 2 might have been soft, John, but for the most part, what I'm seeing deserves to be flagged. Like Ward is being too handsy out there. He can't keep his hands off these guys. Once you get outside of 5 yards,
yeah, he's grabbing them past 5 yards. He's impeding their progress, and
it's not just hand fighting.
Yeah, sometimes it's just like the guy will be running, 10, 12 yards, and he'll just hit him, and you can't touch him after 5 yards. So anytime you impede progress, they're going to call that. So
it's like, and it's on 3rd and long. It feels like right when the defense is about to get off the field, it's like 3rd and long, and it's like Charvarius, man, you're giving him a free first down. So
yeah, Lenore is
one gripe.
I think I feel more comfortable with Lenore covering. I mean, I know he gave up some things in the slot this last one, but Christian Kirk's really fast, so he's going to give up some plays. But yeah, I like Lenore a little bit more than Ward right now at corner. Can't wait for Womack and Luter to get back to help that secondary even more.
I think I'm still rocking with Ward because I feel like he's sticky, he's there, but it's just you got to clean up the penalties. Demo, I've always thought he kind of profiled as a nickel. What I will say is, I think even in this past game against the Jags, Los, to start the game, like if it was a 2 cornerback defensive formation, it was Charvarius Ward and Demo to start the game. But after Demo kind of gave up some plays, from what I saw, they took Demo off the field in the 2 cornerback sets and replaced him with Ambry. So I don't know if that's going to stick, but I think Ambry might have surpassed Demo in the depth chart in terms of when they go to just a 2 corner formations. If they're playing 3 and they're in nickel, Demo's going to be in the slot. But it was like at the start of that game, Demo was outside as well. But after he gave up some plays, they say, you know what, Ambry, you go outside even in the 2 corner formations. And we'll see if that's sticky.
It's funny how Ambry just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he had a good rookie year. He was a big part of the team down the stretch in 21. He somehow regressed last year, hasn't really seen the field for the first 8 games. And then all of a sudden, here he comes, and he plays well, and he makes some plays. So you got to be consistent, though, man. You can't just have 1 good game, 2 bad games. I mean, all these guys have to be consistent if we're going to take this defense to the level that it should be.
Well, this is a really good question, really good question by Lo Jackson. He said, what about Lenore covering Godwin? And that Godwin plays a lot in the slot. So that we are going to see a lot of this matchup. Godwin is a good route runner.
Yeah.
Godwin is a really good route runner.
He makes a lot of plays, so Lenore's going to have his hands full. He's a different kind of receiver than Kirk. Not quite as fast, but a better route runner, change of direction. So that's a great point, Lo.
Yeah, definitely something to monitor. Low, thanks for stopping by. Um, the corner, to kind of put a bow talking about the cornerback position. I was low on Ambry. I'm not an Ambry guy, but that being said, I want him to prove me wrong. And I
Yeah.
thought he played pretty well. We all know about the play where he punched the ball out, ran at the distance, and if not for some Niners on the sideline, should have been a touchdown.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
not even talk about that play.
I know.
Wow.
I know. That was
Get off the field, guy.
when
Even
he
the coach, the linebacker coach, was on the field, man. It's like
yeah, I saw him
they
too.
got all hyphy. They haven't scored a defensive touchdown like that in a while, so they got all excited.
Yeah. Can't do it. Can't do it. Luckily, the game was kind of in hand
Yeah, for
even at
sure.
that point, but it's a learning lesson. Don't let that happen again at a crucial moment of a big game. Like, you better make sure that you think it's a dead ball, you better double check and make sure that the play is really over before you start jumping on celebrating on the field.
Yeah, the thing about real quick on Ambry to follow up, he's got good size. He's got good corner size at 6'1", long arms, and that's what Luter has. Luter is a sleeper to me. Like a lot of people that have watched him practice and watched him at South Carolina says this guy could be really, really good. Had a knee bruise, a knee bruise or a bone bruise or whatever it was, hold him out for the majority of the season. But he's practicing now, and I'm hoping he can get back on the active roster because he's 6'2" with long arms and he runs well. So I like guys that can play man to man. I mean, I've stated that quite a few times, but the more man to man guys, I think the more you just make it harder for any offense rather than the zone defense. But the Niners are kind of known for their zone defense. And one last thing about the secondary. Do you think that they play a lot of zone because our safeties are not great at coverage? Gibson and Hufanga are physical guys, but they're not the best at coverage. So maybe they're forced to go zone because of the safeties, not the corners. Just a thought.
I think they want to go zone. That's their philosophy because
Yeah.
it's that kind of bend but don't break. Like, I always thought they kind of played even a bend but don't break with Rob Sala and D'Amico at times, but they
Yeah.
would know when to dial it up. And it felt like more in the second half with those guys, they would get a more aggressive and say,
Yeah.
okay, we can't keep giving up these 7-yard completions. Let's play a little tighter. But I think it's just going to be. This is predominantly a zone team. Kyle's when he when he got the job and he said, "What do I want in my defensive coordinator?" He looked at what they did in Seattle, right, and kind of the Legion of Boom. That's where Rob Saleh came from. He was a Seattle guy, a cover 3, primarily zone guy. So I think that's Kyle's philosophy. That's just what he envisions for his defense. He talks about what he wanted that style defense because that's what gives his offense the most trouble, or gives him the toughest time. So I
Yeah.
think that's just Kyle's philosophy. But like we
That's
said
true.
earlier, you got to mix it up. You can't play the same thing all
Yeah.
game, otherwise,
It's too
these
predictable.
offenses and these quarterbacks are too good.
And that's one thing, Steve Wilkes, give him credit. He's not used to this type of offense. He wasn't an internal hire. He's not used to a zone, type of defense. He was used to a man to man and the wide nine. They like to play, like you said, wide nine and zone. And Wilkes is not used to that. So maybe it's taken him half a season to really know his personnel and the schemes. It's one thing to do it in preseason and practice, but now that he's seen it in the games for half a season, maybe he knows his personnel better. And I think he's a good guy and he's a good defensive coordinator. I think he'll get better in the booth or on the sideline. That to me is heck of overrated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing I think I like, or my favorite thing about him going to the sideline, I just think Fred Warner is so smart and he sees everything. So Fred now it's a little more direct. Like, I don't know how often they communicate, but I imagine Fred can go to him and say, "Hey, We've been playing a lot of cover three. I think we need to go to some cover one robber, or hey, this is what they're trying to do. This is
Yeah,
what I'm seeing.
yeah,
Here's how do you want to adjust off it. I just trust Fred's eyes so much. I want that line of communication to be there. And I know Fred said earlier, like he wanted to relay something to Steve. I forget what game it was, but he wanted to relay a message, and it wasn't that it wasn't as easy as finding him on the sideline and telling him something. It's like, what, you got to get a headset for him, and then you got to link up with Will. It's just, I think being on the sideline, that's my favorite part about it. But I agree with you. I think that part's overrated. Really, it's the adjustments that I spoke about earlier. What are you going to do in game, mid game, those
right.
adjustments that need to
Mid-game
happen, and
adjustments.
just
Exactly.
how you're calling the defense as opposed to where you are.
Yeah. If something's not working, whether it's scheme or whether it's player wise, make the change. Don't wait until the fourth quarter. Make the change. So
Yes.
I'm with you on that.
Yes. Hey Los, I want to let's hear some game predictions, and then we'll wrap it up and get out of here.
Yeah, I'm thinking, as I said earlier, the Niners should control this game on both sides of the ball. They need to do what works best for them, which is get out to a lead. They're front runners. Don't get behind, um, and just control both sides of the line of scrimmage, just like they did against the Jags. That was very impressive, and just play 49er football. So I think I think for some reason it would be kind of tight going into like close to halftime. And I think the second quarter maybe they pull away like something like 30-13, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
at
Not too
halftime it
far
might
off.
at halftime it might be something like 17 to 10 or something. It might not quite be a runaway, but they'll make adjustments and their talent will just play out. I expect McCaffrey to have a big game because, like you said, White likes to make splash plays. He's going to get caught out of position. They're going to hit them up the middle, and McCaffrey's going to break. Expect him to break a long one.
Oh, I'll be looking for that.
And get my boy Mason some carries. Damn it,
Man, let's get
our
JP
boy.
Mason to rock.
Yeah, let him.
Just
That's what he's there. He's the closer. He's the after you have 3/4 of football and then you bring in your 230 pound. They say he's like a young Marshall Falk. Marshall Falk closed games. I mean, he ain't Marshall Falk, but he's a big physical kid. So would love to see him, get back into the offense and get under the good graces of Ambassador Shanahan.
and Low stole my prediction. This is where I was going, but Low said it and he got it out first. So it's Low's prediction, but I'm going to roll with it. 27-17. Now that I know the Niners are playing at home, Low, so I'm going with the double digit win here. I'm
It was
feeling.
a closer game if it was in Tampa.
It was closer when it was back to back games in Florida, in my mind at least. But now I know it's home. I'm going with a 10-point win at 17. Even that might even be generous for the Bucks. Especially with what this defense just did to Trevor Lawrence. That being said, that's where my mind was at 27-17. I think that's going to be the score, but I feel like it might even feel like a bigger lead. I think the Niners are going to control this game.
Could very well be. Yeah. I mean, 30 point when they're humming, 30 points is not a big deal. So um, I just think sometimes when they get a bigger lead, sometimes they kind of take their foot off the gas and they just kind of run the ball a little bit and kind of keep it down. So, yeah, we'll see, man. It should be a good performance and just keep the thing going, man, because Seattle, Philly, and Seattle, these next three games, don't get caught looking ahead. That is, again, my little bit of concern. Don't come out sloppy and dropping the ball and not having your head in the game because the three games after this are huge. Niners still have a chance for this number one seed, and we all see how they play when they have a little bit of rest. I mean, think about this. They looked tired against Cincinnati, and that was the eighth game. So if they don't get the one seed, they're looking at Eric. They're looking at like 10 straight games playing every week. So if they got tired after 7 or 8 games, and that's why I'm kind of big about get to these big leads and start resting guys. subject McCaffrey to hits that he doesn't need to. We need all these guys healthy to win that number 6
Yeah.
line.
And Drake Greenlaw is just such an X factor because he didn't really look 100%. I felt like he, missing tackles and he was lacking some of that quick twitch that we're so accustomed to, with the hamstring injury. I think that's what was kind of nagging
He's
him
playing
at that
hurt.
time. Yeah. But I thought he looked exceptional against the Jags. Really, that front seven, the D line and the linebackers, I thought were exceptional against the Jags. The trenches, man. Games are won and lost in the trenches, and we got our the Rams fan that's also the biggest 49ers fan, Jim Everett. He said he thinks the Niners are going to lose, but I disagree with you there.
Yeah,
Jimmy. But hey, he does say Bay Area baller is a goat. So hey, Jim, I'm trying to get there. I don't think I'm quite there yet. There's levels to it. I'm working my way up, but I appreciate your compliment.
no doubt.
Hey, before we get out of here, I want to ask. There's a couple tight divisions, and I want to ask you who you think's going to win this one. Man, Detroit's 7-2.
They're for real.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, they're going to lock down that NFC North. I know, Josh Dobbs. It's a cool story with Minnesota. They're 6-4 right now, but I think that's Detroit's division. The NFC South, man, there's just a lot of mediocrity in that NFC South. I think the Saints are good. They're at the top of the division at 5-5 right now. Bucks are 4-5. The Falcons are 4-6. The Panthers are 1-8.
Man.
And the Panthers got no first round pick. Is that right? I don't know why I'm thinking that.
How are they feeling about Young over CJ Stroud right now? I know it's early, but wow, Stroud is really playing well.
They can't like that. And from what I read, Los, I don't know if you heard it, but apparently like the GM in the front office wanted CJ Stroud, but the owner stepped in and he wanted Bryce Young. Man, when those owners get involved, man, it causes problems.
The football people make decisions, and guess what? Like if Young does turn out to be a bust, then the coach and the GM who wanted Stroud will get fired. When the owner is the one that made that call, fire yourself, dude. Take a pay cut.
So who you got coming out of that NFC South?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Saints. They get, they're not a great team by any means. They're barely a good team, but they have the best defense in that division. So they're the worst of the best, or the best of the worst, I should say. So
what I did not see coming low. So I'm just looking at the standings now in the AFC West. The Raiders are in second place in the AFC West. They're 5-5. The Chargers are 4-5, which, man, I didn't see that coming. I thought
Chargers are a mess. God, their coach is horrible. Like Herbert deserves a better coach than that. He really does. But the
thing is, I'm sorry, Los. I like Kellen Moore. At least I did coming into the year. I've been severely disappointed. Like I thought Kellen Moore was like, okay, he's gonna link up with Herbert. They're gonna have a couple really good years, and then Kellen Moore is gonna be a head coach somewhere, get an opportunity. But no, I'm with you. Like I've not been as impressed with Kellen Moore as I thought I was gonna be. But go ahead and talk about the Raiders.
The Raiders are gonna do what they always do. It's November. It's about to be December, and they're gonna turn into a pumpkin and do what they usually do. I mean, they're gonna be probably something along the lines of like 7-10. I would bet my house on it. That's what the Raiders do. It's a nice story. Although I will say this, I do respect them for making a change at coach. And Antonio Pierce is giving them a little bit of juice. I don't know. I just don't see this kid O'Donnell being able to do something when the bigger games start, hitting the schedule. They play Miami this week, so we'll see how good the Raiders are versus that machine in Miami, and it's at Miami too. So Tyreek Hill's on my fantasy team, bro. Go ahead and get your 11 and 180 and 2 touchdowns, please.
Yeah, that's one team. I like, the AFC Niners are obviously my squad, but in the AFC, just
I
with
like
what the
Miami.
Dolphins are doing, McDaniel, they got a lot of Niners blood over there, right?
Too.
Mostert and Jeff Wilson, and they bring in some of these former Niners where it's like Miami might be the team that I kind of root for in the AFC because it's like the offense is so fun to watch. It's dynamic. Mike McDaniel's so creative. And then Fangio, we all know we have a lot of respect for Fangio. I don't think, I think that defense is going to play better as towards the end of the season. I think Fangio's going to get him right. Jalen Ramsey just came back from injury. So, I think the defense, they haven't peaked yet.
It's their division to win because Buffalo is a mess right now.
Man.
That one is a surprise, big time.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what's going on with them. But yeah, the AFC is definitely the stronger conference.
More depth. Yeah, there's more depth. The NFC.
Yeah, more depth. Like, damn, look at the Texans, man. The Texans might make this playoffs. Riding Stroud, and D'Amico's got them playing on defense too. So they went in and won a big game against Cincinnati. That was a big confidence booster. So yeah, it's kind of wide open in the AFC right now. I mean, Kansas City's still king dog as long as you got 15 playing. It's going to be hard to beat them. But I think Cincinnati, I think the bet of the week is whoever Cincinnati's playing. I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're pissed losing to the Texans.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. Jimmy says, rumor is Belichick to the Chargers if he leaves New England. Interesting. Yeah, I that's breaking news to me, Jimmy. So we'll have to monitor that in the offseason. But Los, hey, glad having you on. Now's the time where I want you to play. I know you got some things working behind the scenes. I've caught you over at NorCal Sports Network. Shout out to Dan and those boys. But Los, I want you to let everyone know where they can follow you and plug anything you got going on.
Yeah. So, we're kind of predominantly, unfortunately, known as a baseball channel because we were on so often during the Giants season and after almost every game. But, we talk football, we talk Niners, we talk Warriors. We haven't even scratched the Warriors. That's a whole different topic. We can talk about that another time.
Yeah, they've been getting me frustrated lately, man.
Big time. So yeah, NorCal Sports Network. We talk Niners football, Warriors basketball. Myself, Dan, Bora, and Eric. So we're on about 2 or 3 times a week. You can go ahead and like and subscribe and come on and check us out when we're on. And we have a lot of fun on that show. There's a lot of humor. We go back and forth with the chat, and there's a lot of shit talking, so to speak. So it's a little different style of a channel, but come on over and check it out. But make sure you like and subscribe Eric's channel. Get him to where he wants to get to. Man puts out good content. Man knows his stuff as far as Niner football, Warrior basketball. He's passionate. So make sure you like and subscribe. And not only that, but I always say on my channel, word of mouth is huge. So let people know that enjoy sports and like sports. Let them know about the channel as well. And build Baller up.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Subscribe to Bay Area Baller 18 as well as NorCal Sports Network because we love talking ball and we're going to give you the best of what we got. Los, I'm about to wrap it up here. I think I'm going to dive into the All-22 because other than watching some Chase Young highlights with Chase Young, I thought he looked pretty good in that first game. I'm calling it the Ohio State sandwich sack where they just meet at the quarterback and then Bosa ripped the ball out. So I'm going to dive in and especially I'm going to try to lock in on some of the O-line, Burford,
watch
Feliciano.
Feliciano. He's a difference maker physically. Watch him like I did. He's nice.
I know PFF graded him well, but I want to see it myself. So, hey, Los,
use your own eyes, man, for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks to the chat. The chat was live. We'll see. He said, I know Los seen that. I said, okay. And no BS coming in at the end. Shout out Crypto Ryan, No Border Sports. Thanks for stopping by. But we're out of here. Like the video on the way out. Catch